Hi everybody, this is going to be a chapter 3 video, and I've got some vocabulary on the screen right here. I want you to pause your video and I want you to read through the vocabulary. We're going to be working with scatter plots, trend lines, and talking about correlation today. So I'm going to take a minute and talk a little bit more about these correlations. Okay, if we have two variables, okay, they have a positive correlation if they both increase together. As x increases, y increases. So you can see, as one goes up, the other is also going up. If they have a negative correlation, that means as x gets bigger, y gets smaller. And then no correlation means there's not really a relationship here. It's just kind of all over the place. There's no correlation that we can find between those two variables. Now, the one thing I do want to point out is that positive does not mean good, and negative does not mean bad. Okay, we're talking about slopes here. You kind of think about it that way. This line has a positive slope. This line has a negative slope. So don't think good or bad. We're talking about the direction that the points are moving in. So let's look at an example here. Okay, example 1 says the table shows the number of points scored by a high school football team in the first 4 games of a season. We want to graph a scatter plot using those points and then describe the correlation. So we have a couple steps here. First of all, we need to know what is on the x-axis and what's on the y-axis. Well, the number of games is going to be our x-axis, and the score is going to be our y-axis. So I'm going to label those. Okay, we need to choose a scale. So if I look at my game data, it goes from 1 to 4. So I'm going to label this. I'm gonna go 2 in between. Okay, so each tick mark would represent a half, okay, but we only have whole numbers here. And then our score goes from 6 to 46. So let's make our scale go from 0 to 50. Let's make each tick mark be 10. All right, so we have our scale. So now we can plot the points. So we have 1, 6, 2, 21, 3, 46, and 4, 34. Now, we want to try to describe the correlation here. Now, we don't have a lot of points, but the points that we do have, it looks like as the number of games increase, the score is also increasing. So the points seem to be moving in this direction, okay? And that would be a positive correlation. As the number of games increases, the score increases. Okay, another example. It says a runner's time and the number of letters in their name. Okay, so that's the scenario we're working with. We want to try to identify the correlation between those variables. Is there a positive correlation, a negative correlation, or no correlation at all? Well, let's think about it this way. If I had my graph with the number of letters on the x-axis and their time on the y-axis, a positive correlation would look like this, meaning as the number of letters in a person's name increases, their time also increases. Okay, so that would be a positive correlation. A negative correlation would mean as the number of letters in a person's name increases, their time decreases. So I want you to think about those two scenarios and decide, do you think it's negative, positive, or no correlation at all? Now, we don't actually have a set of data here to look at, but thinking logically, we know there is no relationship between the length of a person's name and their time in a race. So we can say the data would probably look something like this. It would probably be all over the place because there would be No correlation between these two variables. So let's talk about trend lines. Okay, it says the scatter plot shows the number of CDs in millions that were sold from 1999 to 2005. So two things we want to do here. We want to draw a trend line, and remember those cut through the points right down the middle. And then we want to use that trend line to predict the number of CD sales in 2006. Now, when we're drawing trend lines by hand, it's never going to be perfect. We just want to try to fit the data the best that we can. And the line that fits best looks like it would probably be right about here. So if we're looking at using this trend line to make a prediction for 2006, we need to find 2006 on the x-axis, so it would be right here. And then we're going to look up at the graph here. This is the point for the year 2006. We can find the number of CD sales in 2006 by backtracking and going over to the y-axis. Okay? Again, we're making an estimation here, but to me, this looks like it's probably about 660. So we can make a prediction. We can say in 2006, there are going to be 660, remember this is in millions, 660 million CD sales. So the key idea is when we're working with scatter plots, you want to make sure you label your x and y axis and make sure that you're picking a scale so that your points fit nicely on the graph. Remember, correlations can be positive, negative, or there can be no correlation at all. Read from left to right, and remember, positive and negative do not mean good and bad here. Last thing, when you're drawing your trend line, make sure that your line has the same number of points above it and below it, so you want to cut it through the middle. Your line might not touch any data points on your graph, and that's okay. We're just trying to split the data the best that we can. All right, guys, I hope this video was helpful, and have a wonderful day.